Well, hi, this is Gayle from BERNINA of Naperville, and it's time again for Kimberbell Society, and it's March now, so we're going to do a little embroidery sampler. Now, this looks like the kind of embroidery sampler you would do by hand because it is fashioned in this wooden hoop, but it's certainly a little bit of a sampler of all the fun things that you can do with machine embroidery that you might not have realized that you could do. So we're going to break this down by technique, and we're also going to do two options for you this month. And that's because there's the BERNINA 7 and 8 series owners. You're going to be able to use the medium clamp hoop. However, folks with the BERNINA 5 series, you know, the large oval hoop, well, we're going to do two hoopings worth of those. So we're going to do the first one as a one hooper and put that in that cute little wooden hoop that you got in your kit. But then the second one we're going to make in the large hoop, and we're going to turn that one into a drawstring bag, which is going to be easy because you already got the drawstring bag. See what we're doing there? All right, well, let's get started by looking at the additional presentation deck that you're going to get in the description of this YouTube video. Let's take a look at all of the special things that we need and we're going to do this month, because after all, this one is kind of like a little embroidery sampler. So your supplies, in addition to, of course, the Kimberbell Society kit for March 2024, and by the way, this kit has way more than you need to make our projects. In fact, we're making two. We're making our original project like Kimberbell wants us to do in the little hoop, and you're getting the wooden hoop as well, of course. But we're also going to turn that muslin drawstring bag that you received, that your kit was packaged in, well, we're going to turn that into a little drawstring bag that you can hold your embroidery supplies in. So, with that said, let's have a look at some of the other things we're going to need. We're going to start with thread. With our isocord thread and those 1,000-meter spools, the Kimberbell Dark Gray, we're using 3344 Midnight. The dark blue that Kimberbell recommends, well, we mixed it up and we're doing 4122 in Peacock. The light green is going to be 5722 Grass Green. The light blue is more of a light minty blue, which is called Mystic Blue, and that's 4952. And the teal is called Amazon, and that's 4643. The dark green is more of a Kelly green, although OESD calls it scrub green, and that's 5400. Our burgundy is pomegranate, number 2211. The dark pink is 1921, which is called Blossom. And you know, being fresh out of Vegas, the light pink we chose is Tropicana at 2220. Dark orange is 1355, which is like a fox color. And finally, the light orange is 1430 in melon. I do want to let you know, as much as I love water-soluble thread, we are not using it this month because I didn't want to get my piece wet. So instead, we're just using a contrasting color in the bobbin. And we're going to just cut that thread rather than dissolve it. Some other supplies. Now, everybody, if you're using a BERNINA 7 or 8 series machine, the BERNINA medium clamp hoop is going to be all that you need, and it's going to be one hooping in that medium clamp hoop. However, if you have a BERNINA 5 series, you're going to use the BERNINA large hoop, and you're going to use two files. And I'm going to talk you through that in just a moment. But the meat and potatoes of this lesson is about how you're actually going to stitch these different techniques that are found in this month's project. When I loaded my stuff in the hoop, I used a hot glue gun with glue sticks to add an 8-inch cardboard circle that I had covered with some extra fabric from our kit. So you're going to need some fusible web for that, or heat and bond light. Always serrated small curved scissors. And if you're going to do the additional drawstring bag project, you're going to need 2 cord stoppers. And of course, I've given you a link to that. And then this month for our 2 hoop option, I added 2 large hoop sizes of heavy tearaway stabilizer. Now, it's not in the stabilizer selections, but you're going to need that because that's what I use to do the 2 hooper. And then this month, you're also going to need medium cutaway and paper tape And as always, I forgot to highlight it here, but you're going to need some fusible backing because we're going to back our light material that we're hooping in the decorative wooden hoop, but we're also going to need it for our drawstring bag to give the bag a little bit more stability. And like every month, what I do invite you to do is, of course, when this video uploads, you're going to see in the description of this video that I have a link to this presentation deck that you're seeing me use right now. Well, you're going to simply click on that link that's in here if you're confused as to how to get your Kimberbell designs, because although you are buying the designs and the kit from BERNINA of Naperville, the digital embroidery files will be sent to you via email directly from Kimberbell. And so you're just going to click this little link in your handout, and that will show you exactly how you're going to go through that process. Just a little video to show you how to do that. So depending on what size hoop you have or what model machine, the designs for this month, the single hoop design, you just need one design. If you're doing the 2 hooper because you have a 5 series machine with the large hoop, you're going to need 2 separate designs, hoop 1 and hoop 2. Now also, some of you might be asking me, hey Gayle, I've got a midi hoop or I've got the small clamp hoop. Well, sadly, those designs are not going to fit in either one of those. So you really do need to do a 2 hooper in your large hoop. So now, one of the things that, there's a lot of thread colors in this design. Those isocord thread colors that I read off to you are about 11 different colors. So why don't we take a moment and look at our BERNINA 790 Pro, or rather, all of your BERNINAs are going to work this way, and we're going to assign the correct colors. Now, I'm using the design that is all-in-one, the 1 hooper. But if you're doing the 2 different designs for the 2 hooper, then you're going to have to do these color changes on both of those designs. So let's have a look at that. So the first thing that we want to do is pick our artist palette. And then I am just going to select color number 1. And then look up here. There is actually a little color chart where I can change my color chart from BERNINA to isocord. And now what that means is that every time I want to change a color, it's going to just pull up the isocord shades. So as we go through here, we're going to see our different colors. And I start off with my teal color. So the teal color is actually 4643. So I'm just going to go ahead and assign all of my colors that color, just so I don't have to change the thread as often. So we're going to say 4643, assign, scroll down to the next one, 4643, assign, and then one again and again. Now, the next color that I used was actually what is called dark blue in the Kimberbell instructions, but I am calling it 4122. And it's like this peacock blue. And then with the next one, I used my lighter orange color, which is 1430. And all of these I made 1430. And then when I got to this one, I did the darker orange or the dark pink. Either one will work with these colors. It's up to you. And that was 1355. And now it's time for our green, which was this wonderful little Kelly type green there. And now we're going to do our light orange again, which is 1430. And now this color is also, when you get to 1430 and it's a flower, this is also where you're going to change your bobbin to a contrasting thread color. The same for this color, and that one we are making the 1355. And then we're going to do something a little bit different with this once we start stitching out, because I actually want these two things to be two different colors. But for right now, we're just going to change this to 1430. And then this one is going to be 1355 again. And now we are at our burgundy color, which is 2211. Because this is our chenille. And then for the sewing machine, this is called red work. So you'd think you'd make it red, but I actually decided I wanted this to be midnight. So I'm changing that to the 3344. And then the rest of our rainbow here with these decorative stitches, this one was going to be our light green, which is 5722. And then the under the rainbow bit is our light pink, which is 2220, our Tropicana. And then the rest of this is going to be midnight, which was 3344. And now when we look at this, it looks like more of something that we want to stitch out. So let's go ahead and stitch this out, but come back later and I'll show you how we can work on those two colors that were grouped together in a little bit of a way that we would like to change. So to hoop our medium cutaway stabilizer, that's what we're using today. And the cutaway is just going to stay in here when we do this hooping like this. When I show you how we do our bag, we're going to use a different stabilizer. But for right now, we're going to use what the Kimberbell instructions recommend, which is the medium cutaway. So I'm using my medium square clamp hoop, and this is perfect for those of you that have a Bernina 7 or 8 series machine, because this hoop does a maximum of about 8.5-inch square, and that is just slightly larger than our embroidery design that we're using. That's all one hooping. And I've already taken my fusible backing and ironed it onto the back side of the cream fabric that comes in your kit. And now I'm just going to place this. We've cut this at 11 inches square, which is going to give me just enough to hold on to as we fit this in the hoop. And then, of course, after we embroider, we will trim this down. So the first thing that we're going to do is the applique piecing in the hoop, and that's made from two different fabrics. There's a light blue with a little tealy green stripe in it, and the navy dotted. So let's get down to it and see this in action. And what we're also going to do is skip color 1, and that's simply because we are not floating our fabric. I had you cut it large enough so everything can be secure in the hoop. So we're just going to simply thread up our color number 4122 and stitch this circle, which will ultimately be a guideline for when we put this in the hoop. So our next step, which is change up number 3, is going to tell us where to put our bottom wings of the butterfly. And as I put this on here, I want to kind of decide, do I want it to show all in blue? Do I want to have little stripes up the wings? So I cut it, plenty big per the Kimberbell instructions, so you can kind of decide how you want your stripy fabric here. And if there's some other fabric from the kit that you would rather have as the butterfly wings, well, that's completely fine as well. And once your tack down stitch completes, just like, those of you who have done a Kimberbell with us before, you just know it's all about trimming really close to that tack down stitch. We're going to remove our tape, and I like using my perfect scissors here, these little red-handled curved scissors. And you want to get close to the edge because you don't want any little whiskers under the butterfly. And you can take the hoop off, but just not your work out of the hoop to do this. But sometimes it's just as easy for me to trim it while the hoop is just on the machine. So now we're going to stitch the cover stitch. All right, so we don't want a lot of whiskers, so that's why we trim really close. So now we're ready to do the cover stitch. All right, change of thread. And now it's time to do the placement stitch for the top of our wings. Now we're going to try piecing in the hoop. Now this one is going to take 3 different fabrics which you've pre-cut, and it's the peach floral, burgundy, and light pink. This is our little flying goose unit. So this is stitch and flip in the hoop. So the first thing that's going to stitch down is just the general outline of what we're going to be piecing. We're going to place one of our flowery fabrics here to cover the bottom triangle of our flying goose unit, just like that. And there's plenty there. So now we're going to stitch. And now we're going to trim right up against that line. And now this bottom one gets one of our darker burgundy colors, and we're going to line this up just like so and stitch. And then we're going to flip this over, and we're going to put a little bit of tape to hold this piece into place just here, like so. Then we're going to stitch another placement line. And we're going to trim close to this edge. And we're going to use our other piece and do the exact same thing. And when you put this on, you just want to make sure when it flops over that it's going to cover this whole little triangle like that. And you have plenty of fabric to do that, but just make sure that you don't line this up like up here, right? You want to cover this whole piece like so. And so now we're going to fold that one over, and we look at that. We have a cute little triangle forming. I'm going to use a little bit more tape to hold this in place like so. There we go. And now we're going to stitch another placement line. We're going to remove our tape. And now this time we're going to trim. And it's okay if it looks a little bumpy. That little bump there, you can't get as close to the stitching. And now we're going to take another flowery piece and put that right sides down and stitch. And now we're going to flip this back. Look how this is coming together. And now we're going to tape that into position while we stitch a placement line for our lighter pink over here. Okay, so now I'm going to trim. And I did something a little special because we're working with some pretty light pinks here. So I went ahead and just added some fusible backing to the pink, just so you don't see that seam under there. So now I'm going to line that up and stitch. And this is just going to give it a more opaque look. And now we're going to fold this guy over, tape it into place, and then do our placement line on this other side. All right, the magic of video, right? So now we're just going to do this cover stitch on here, and you'll see how cute this little patch looks. Now, for fringed flowers, there's no fabric that we need to add to this, but we are going to stitch some super cute fringe. Now, the main thing that you need to remember here is when we get to our lighter peach or lighter orange color, the first flower, which is the smaller one at the right here, is you're going to need to change your bobbin to either water soluble or, like we did, a contrasting color. And then your two fringed flowers are going to stitch at the same time. And your machine is going to go slow, even if you try to set the speed faster. It's just the way it's programmed. Once the fringe has been stitched out, you want to remember to put your regular bobbin fill back in and complete the rest of the fringed flower. Now, I want to show you something right here. I don't want my rainbow to be stitched with this color at the top. So after the circle of my flower stitches out, I'm going to stop my machine. And now I want to rethread with the light minty blue. Now, if you want to see how you could do this with any of your Plus or your Pro machines, this would be like the 590 or our 735, 770 Plus, the 790, 880 Pluses, and the 790 Pro. Well, let's have a look at this. It's so easy to ungroup and separate the things. It's this magic button right here that is ungroup. So we're going to select this button. And if you're unaware of where to find it, you're going to go into your edit crayon, to your I button, and find this button. You might have to scroll up or down to find it, but you select it. Then you're going to hit this button, which is ungroup. And then look what happens. It splits our design up into all of these little segments. And I'm scrolling up until I find our flower center that's got the rainbow connected, right? Now I'm going to ungroup that. And now look at that. They're separate. And then also there's another grouping here. The other flower center, that one also can be ungrouped easily. So now when I close, I can actually select my center here and change the color if I want. And you can see, then that gets changed. And then I can change my rainbow top to light blue. So we'll visit the fringe flower again when we need to trim that contrasting bobbin thread when we're all complete with our hooping. But let's move on to making the chenille heart. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. Now it's time to do the chenille heart. So the first thing that we need to do, and I get a little confused with these sometimes, because listen, I just look at the pictures, But when you're doing the heart, the first thing that you want to do is you take one of the 4 3-inch pieces that you cut, and you're going to place it down on this placement line. Then you're going to trim really close to the edge. Magically, we trimmed that, and now we're going to stitch a little finishing stitch around the raw edge of the heart. So now we're going to take those other 3 pieces of red, and we're going to place them on top. And then once you're done stitching the chenille pieces, it's time to give this a little haircut, and it's going to look so cute. So I'm just going to use this little guy. This is made by Clover, and see how it's got that little lip? Well, that's there to help us cut down the middle of our stitches. Now we might need to take out some of our little basting stitches here, so I'm just going to do that quickly. We're going to slip that through and just cut. And you want to make sure that you cut through all 3 layers. And by appliquing that first layer down, it makes sure that we don't see through to the creamy color of our bag here. Okay, so then once we get everything kind of liberated here, we're going to fluff it with our fingers. Fluff it with your fingernails. Get an old toothbrush, do whatever. And really get everything frayed out. All right, so you know how to clean up this mess, right? With some extra sticky back stabilizer. All right, we're going to cool down here a little bit, and we're going to do our single outline stitching. Now, to be fair, this is the red work exercise. I didn't want to do the sewing machine in red. I wanted to do it in black. And I also noticed that when I was using my 790 Pro, this tiny little stitching like this really does perform well with the Bernina high tension bobbin case. So this bobbin case works for all of your new Bernina 740, 770, 790, and 435, 475, 480, 485, 535, 570, 590, and 540 machines. If you have a 750 or 780, it will not take the yellow bobbin high tension case. Once your design is complete, you're going to trim all of your little spare threads and everything to make it look nice and neat. I've got just a few down here in my little font there that I'm going to clean up. But let's turn our attention over here to the back. And I'm going to trim the little jump stitches and stuff here. But what I really wanted to point out to you, remember when we changed that bobbin fill to green? Well, this could either be water soluble or this thread. So like I said, I just didn't want to get my piece wet. So I'm just cutting the green bobbin thread here. And I like to use my scraps of sticky back stabilizer to get all my little wispy, weird little threads removed. And so I'm not worried about the mess that this is making right now. Okay. And we just have to do it on this one as well. So now we're going to turn this upside down. And I like using a little blunter piece here that can't rip my threads like my scissors. So I changed to this little poking device here. I like the OESD point and press tool, but the one we have here at the shop is being used right now. So I grabbed my applique stick. But you just want to take your time doing this. And if something doesn't release, don't force it. Get everything that you can pulled through and kind of brushed, and then you can go back and trim any little stubborn pieces that aren't coming through. And by cutting the green thread, you are actually leaving loops rather than perfectly cut fringe. Okay, I'm going to turn it over now and see if there was anything that didn't get trimmed. And it looks like, indeed, there were some pieces back here. There we go. So I'm just going to get all that green out of there, and then I'm going to kind of give this a little bit of a haircut. Look at that. It's cute, right? So now let's go ahead and get this loaded up in our embroidery hoop. All right, so we're going to undo our little wooden hoop here. And what I like to do is hoop it using this stitching line as a guide, and then I'm going to trim it afterwards. So let's decide. I think I want this guy to be at the top so we can hang it. So I'm going to place my ring underneath just so it is right on top of that blue, which I will probably pick out with my little scissors there. I stitched it in blue so that you could see it in the video, but you might want to stitch that out in a matching color for yours. So now that we got it in there, we're gonna righty-tighty the screw, get it nice and tight. And I'm gonna cut my little threads here and just pull those out. We are going to cut about 1 inch around our hoop like this. We're going to turn this upside down, and I want to fold this in and use my iron to just steam it into position like this, because I am going to glue this down so it stays in place. I want to cover this and make it look really pretty. So what I'm going to do is take a piece of my flower fabric here, because I like this one the most. And then I'm going to take a circle exactly the size of the inside ring of this, and I'm going to cut a piece of cardboard. So I cut an 8-inch circle here, and I have my little scrap. I used some Heat and Bond Light and cut, and now I'm going to trace my circle on the paper side of this. There we go. And then I am going to trim this about 1/4 inch or so around my circle. Okay, then we're going to peel our paper off, and I'm going to press this so that everything is centered on my cardboard piece. All right, so what do you think of our little piece there? Now, I do apologize that I forgot to show you how I pressed the fusible web onto the cardboard, but I think you get the idea, right? I just rounded the little edges around there, and then I glue sticked it. So let's have a look at how we did the embellishment on this drawstring bag. So here's our little bag. So what I want to do with this is I want to fold it in half to find the center. Don't bother measuring, because if you measure this bag, I mean, it's not exactly perfect and it's kind of a weird width. So what I'm going to do is just mark down the middle here. So this is going to be our center mark here, our vertical center mark. Then we're going to take the edge here and fold that up with the bottom of the drawstring casing. And we're going to draw a line here. So this line here, I inadvertently made an X next to it there. So that's going to be the center of our bag. Then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to just open up the side seams. And then you can also unknot your drawstrings and pull them out and save them for later. Now, I don't really have a great free arm tool that would have done this bag without ripping it, but you can see the seam on this. It was a raw edge. We can do better than this, okay? So when we put our bag together, I want to show you a little trick. But we're going to do the same with this one. I'm going to unknot and pull the drawstring out and give it a pressing. Okay, so for this piece, I am going to show you how you would use a smaller hoop like this one that is under 5 by 7 inches. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to cut 2 pieces of a heavyweight tearaway stabilizer that will fit in this hoop. And we're going to float this item. So we're going to undo this from the hoop and squeeze our heavyweight tearaway stabilizer. Okay, so here we are. And now I'm going to spray some 505 on here. Now, I know that I marked this already, but the Kimberbell instructions, if you were using the background fabric, want you to fold and then fold again on the center like this, okay? So, but we've already marked that. So now we're going to take this over to the machine, and I've loaded in our first part of this 2-hooper. I picked the first design, which is the bottom part of the design, and we're going to stitch this cross design, and I'm using a darker color thread just so you can see what I'm stitching here. Now our goal is to take our little X and put it over that X nice and straight. And just so you know, the top is to the left and the bottom is to the right of this design. And so I'm just making sure that this is nice and straight on that X. And now our next stitch is also a basting line, and it's for the bottom of the hoop placement, but in this case, this is for our bag. So I'm just going to stitch it out to kind of hold things into position. And now we're going to run through the stitch and flip design just like I did before. So you know what? That's the same instructions as this. So just go back to that one if you need to watch it again. So our first hooping is done, and if I didn't mention it earlier, I did fuse a little bit of SF101 to the back of this bag after I opened it up and pressed it well. So you might want to do that because this stuff is a little bit wiggly otherwise. So now I'm just going to gently tear, and this was the heavyweight tearaway stabilizer. And if you're worried about pulling out your little reference marks there, before you pull, you can add a little water-soluble pen action there so you know exactly where those spots are. So you don't have to worry if the thread comes undone. And then ultimately, I will be picking out a little bit more out of this bag, but just for now, we're going to just leave it like this, and I'll be picking the black stitches out of here as well. So now let's hoop up that other piece of heavyweight tearaway stabilizer. And then I'm going to spray this with 505 and bring this back over to my machine. What we're going to do now, it doesn't matter the color again. So we're going to pick up our threads and we're going to stitch a placement line from where we're going to line up our little registration marks. So we'll just let this happen. All right, so we have these two lines here and here, and I folded my piece back so we can expose them like so, and just line everything up right on those two pieces. There we go, like so. And now we're going to go ahead and stitch our other basting line. So this is exactly what it looks like, all complete in the second hooping. So you can see this is pretty cool. All I'm going to do is gently tear this out. I don't know, did that seem gentle? Okay, so now, just like before, I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to get all my little threadsy wedsies trimmed, and then I'm going to do my fringe, remove my basting stitches, and what have you, and I'm going to show you how to put this back together. Everything's trimmed and nice. We're going to fold this back together, and I'm going to use my serger and serge and serge. So I just turned it inside out. I'm going to squirt it a little bit in a moment to get rid of my blue pen. But first I'm going to tie a little knot. These are the drawstrings I saved out of it the first time. And I'm going to feed my drawstring through my elastic feeder. And I'm going to go in through the hole. It's just a raw edge hole from this pre-made bag. And I'm going to feed this through. Have to give it a little tug. And we have these cute little things. If you wanted to use something like this, you just need two of. Just make a little thread cradle with some stronger thread to feed these cords through the cord cover. Here we go. And give it a little pull. And then tie a knot with both of them. And then slip this guy over it like so, and it looks super cute. Way more expensive, right? There we go. Pull tight, and then cover the knot. Ta-da! So what I think is cute is we could put like our little notions in here that we use for embroidery. All of the little things, you know, especially if you're doing something where you have some handwork to take with you or whatever. But yeah, I think it's cute. All right, so that's it for this month. You have two projects, maybe one to give away and one to keep. I'm going to be keeping this bag because I can stick a lot of my little embroidery things when I take classes and things like that. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to watch more videos, hey, hop on over to our BERNINA of Naperville YouTube channel, and there you could like, comment, and subscribe. And you could also hop on over to BERNINAofNaperville.com where you could sign up for the Kimberbell Society. And let me tell you, there's no obligation there. You can do it 1 month and not do it another month. We don't charge you a monthly subscription price. It is what it is. And if you're doing Kimberbell Digital Dealer Exclusive somewhere else, well, you can always get the fabric from us. It's fine. All right. Well, thank you so much and see you soon. Bonaparte, calm down.